Why was she still here? The question pressed against her chest as the rotors faded into the distance. Dust swirled in slow spirals, the last heartbeat of the departing helicopter. She raised her hand against the sun, but they were gone, her unit, her team, her brothers in arms, every single one. She had been left behind. The silence that followed was heavier than gunfire. Not a sound of radio chatter. Not the usual laughter or curses between men who carried too much weight and too many regrets. Just wind, heat, and her heartbeat, fast, uneven, stubborn. She stood still, rifle slung over her shoulder, boots sinking into the powdery earth. Sweat stung her eyes, but she didn't wipe it away. Not yet. She wanted to feel the sting. She wanted to remember. It wasn't the first time she had been forgotten. At the academy, they'd barely spoken to her. At the barracks, she was the one they didn't pick for card games. At the briefing tables, voices moved around her like water, as though she wasn't even there. But here, in this silence, in this empty patch of hostile soil, it was no accident. She was expendable. Her radio crackled, static, nothing more. She adjusted the dial, lips pressed thin, willing a voice to answer. Nothing. Her pulse steadied. Training ran like muscle memory through her veins. First, shelter. Second, water. Third, position. She wasn't a rookie and she wasn't broken. Not yet. She turned her back to the horizon where the helicopter had vanished. Somewhere beyond those mountains, her unit was already moving. Orders had shifted. They had left her. Or maybe something worse had happened. The thought clawed at her. She tried to push it down, but it lingered. They hadn't even looked back, not one of them. Why? She began walking. Each step sank with a crunch. The sun burned high and her shadow stretched long and skeletal against the sand. Her canteen was only half full. Her map creased, weathered, marked her as a dot far from friendly lines. The mission wasn't over. That much she knew, but what she didn't know was why she had been erased from it. Her mind flickered back. Just hours ago she had stood with them, shoulder to shoulder in the dim light of the forward outpost. The air smelled of dust and fuel. They had studied the board, lines, arrows, positions. She remembered leaning in, pointing to the weak flank, her voice steady as she explained the risk. No one had answered. One had cleared his throat, another had shuffled papers. The captain had moved on. She remembered standing straighter, jaw tight, pretending it didn't sting, pretending it didn't matter. But now the silence mattered. She stopped walking, crouched low near a ridge, eyes narrowing. A shimmer in the distance. Heat, mirage, or movement. Her hand rested on her rifle. The strap dug into her shoulder, comforting in its weight. She whispered to herself, barely audible, "Not today." The shimmer vanished, just heat, just emptiness. She pushed forward, breath shallow, scanning the landscape. The ground sloped downward into a dry riverbed, its edges cracked like old skin. She slid down, boots sending gravel skittering. At the bottom, she paused, listening. Silence again, too much silence. Her thoughts betrayed her. Maybe they hadn't forgotten. Maybe they had chosen. Maybe someone somewhere had made the call, leave her. Her throat tightened. She had seen how they looked at her, like she was still proving herself, still earning the right to stand where they stood. They never said it aloud, but the silence said enough. She clenched her fist until her nails dug into her palm. "Fine, leave me, forget me. But I will survive." The words burned in her chest, not spoken, but alive, loud enough that they seemed to echo against the cliffs. She crouched in the dry riverbed, pulling the scope from her pack. She scanned the horizon, careful, steady. The glass caught sunlight, revealing nothing but rock and sand. No smoke, no movement. But there was something. She felt it the way soldiers feel when eyes are on them, a prickle on the back of her neck. She lowered the scope slowly, waited, nothing. And yet the feeling stayed. Her mind wandered back again, unbidden, to the night before. She remembered a letter tucked deep in her pack, folded twice, edges frayed from being opened too often. her sister's handwriting, a birthday wish she had missed again, a promise that when she came home there would be cake waiting, even if it was days late. She hadn't written back, couldn't, what would she say? That every day she carried a weight of being invisible, that she had trained harder, shot straighter, studied longer, and still they barely saw her. That maybe, just maybe, she wasn't fighting for them anymore. No, the letter stayed folded, waiting. She touched her pack now, the memory sharp. It steadied her, reminded her why she had to keep moving. Survival wasn't just for her. A sound. Sharp, faint, not wind, not sand, metal. She froze, crouched low. Slowly she slid her rifle forward, cheek against stock, eyes against glass. The breath in her lungs stopped. A shadow shifted between rocks. She didn't blink, didn't move. The figure was careful, moving low, scanning, not one of hers. She knew it instantly. Their movement was too patient, too calculated. Enemy. Her finger curled against the trigger guard, light ready. But she waited. The figure paused, crouched, scanning in the opposite direction. She could have taken the shot, clean, swift, ended. But something in her chest held her back. A whisper, not of mercy, but of strategy. One shot would give away her position. One body might mean 5 more. She eased her finger back, just a breath away from firing, and pulled away. Not yet. Instead, she slid backward, crawling against the cracked earth until her back touched stone. She stayed still, counting heartbeats. The shadow moved on, disappeared. Her chest rose slow, relief mixed with a bitter aftertaste. She could have ended it, but survival meant patience. The silence returned, heavier now. She tilted her head back, eyes closed for just a moment. And she thought, not of her unit, not of the mission, but of the simple truth that kept her alive. No one is coming for you. The words were cold, but inside that cold there was fire. Her eyes opened. She whispered again to no one, to herself, "Then I'll come for me." She adjusted her pack, slung the rifle higher, and started walking. Each step forward was not just movement, it was defiance. The sun dipped lower, shadows stretching, colors burning into orange. She didn't know where the path would lead. She didn't know if her unit was alive or if they had erased her on purpose. But she knew this: her survival would not be silent. Not anymore. How long could she keep moving before the dark swallowed her? The sun was bleeding into the horizon, orange fading to violet. Shadows stretched long and sharp across the desert floor. The air cooled, but not enough. Each breath still carried heat, grit, and the metallic taste of exhaustion. She knew the night would change everything. Daylight was cruel, yes, but predictable. You could see the mirage, spot the sniper glint, catch the distant shift of movement. Night was different. Night hid things. And night revealed fear. She reached a cluster of rocks, jagged teeth rising out of the earth. Sliding into their shadow, she crouched low, listening. The silence had changed. It was denser now, as if the ground itself was holding its breath. She unslung her rifle, set it across her lap, and pulled her canteen. One sip, just one. She tilted her head back, water trickling, dry throat swallowing greedily before she forced herself to stop. Half empty had become 1/3. Her hand lingered on the metal, fingers trembling, not from thirst, but from something else. Loneliness. She hadn't felt it this heavy in years. Not since training, when she'd sit alone in the mess while others laughed in circles, their voices a wall she couldn't pass through. They never said she didn't belong. They didn't need to. Silence spoke louder. But this silence, the desert silence, was sharper. It whispered the truth she had always pushed down. They hadn't forgotten her, they had left her. Her jaw tightened. No tears, not now, not ever in the open. The wind shifted, a faint rustle. She froze, fingers wrapped around the rifle stock, barrel angling toward the sound. Her breath thinned. Movement just beyond the rocks. She pressed herself into the stone, heartbeat in her throat. Slowly, she raised her cheek to the scope, peering through the fading light. Two figures, low, careful, not hers. Their outlines cut against the dusk, rifles slung, steps deliberate, hunters. Her chest tightened, enemy patrol. She tracked them through the glass, every muscle taut. A shot would drop one, maybe both if she was fast, but the crack would echo, call more. Not yet. They paused, one knelt brushing sand, tracking her tracks. She swallowed hard. The second man scanned the horizon, hand brushing the barrel of his weapon. His face turned just enough for her to see the scar crossing his jaw. Hard eyes, patient. She lowered the scope slowly, pressing her back against stone. Her hands trembled, not with fear, but with focus so sharp it cut. If she stayed, they'd find her. If she ran, they'd follow. Her mind raced, options, angles, silence. She slipped the safety off, drew in one long breath. And then nothing. She didn't fire, not yet. The patrol shifted again, moving past the rocks, slow, deliberate, their boots crunching soft against sand. One pause, two, then silence. She waited, counted to 60, counted again. Gone. She exhaled, shoulders slumping against stone. Her pulse thudded in her ears, relief and shame. She could have ended them, but the truth was sharper than her rifle sights. She was alone, no backup, no rescue. Every bullet had to count. Her hand brushed the pack at her side. Inside, wrapped in cloth, was a folded photograph. She hadn't looked at it in months, maybe years, not since she'd stuffed it deep enough to forget. But now her hand lingered. She pulled it free. The picture was worn, edges soft, faces blurred. A kitchen table, two chairs, her mother's smile tired but warm. Her sister leaning in, eyes full of a light that hadn't dulled yet. She stared at it, throat tightening. She remembered the last words before deployment. "Promise me you'll come back." She hadn't promised, couldn't. She had only nodded, eyes lowered, afraid of what truth might slip out if she opened her mouth. Now, in the shadow of the rocks, with night pressing in, the memory hit harder. She folded the photo back, slipping it into her pack. Slowly, carefully, she adjusted her rifle and leaned her head against the stone. The stars bled into the sky. Cold air crept in. Each gust carried the smell of dust and faint metal, the scent of weapons fired too often in this land. She closed her eyes, but only halfway. Sleep was a luxury she couldn't afford. Instead, she let her mind drift, half alert, half lost. It was then she heard it. Footsteps. Closer this time. Her breath caught. She lowered herself flat, rifle angled, eyes sharp through the glass. Not two, not the same. One figure moving slower, heavier. She tracked the shadow, waiting, breath caught between beats. Closer. A crack of metal echoed, the sound of a canteen clipped loose. Her chest froze. Enemy alone. The man knelt not 10 meters away, back turned. A perfect shot. Her finger hovered on the trigger. One squeeze, simple, clean. But something stopped her. The sound of his breath, heavy, uneven. She watched the way his shoulders rose, the slow shake of exhaustion. For a moment, just a flicker, he looked human. Not an enemy, just another soldier caught in a war neither of them had chosen. Her throat tightened. She had seen that posture before, in her own reflection. Her finger eased away from the trigger. The man shifted, muttered something she couldn't hear, and moved on, steps fading into the dark. She stayed still, rifle pressed to her chest, heart pounding. When silence returned, she let her breath out. It shook, not from fear, but from something harder to name. She whispered, barely audible, "Sometimes not pulling the trigger is the hardest part." The night deepened. Stars wheeled overhead, cold and indifferent. She curled against the stone, rifle still clutched, exhaustion seeping into her bones. Every sound made her flinch. Every silence pressed heavier. She thought of her sister's letter again, of the unopened cake, of promises she'd never spoken. Her eyes burned, not tears, just the sting of everything she carried. And then somewhere in the distance, a flare lit the sky. Red brief silent. Her pulse spiked. Her unit a signal, a trap. She stared, breath locked, heart torn between hope and suspicion. Whatever it was, it meant one thing. She wasn't as forgotten as she thought. But whether that was salvation or something far worse, she would only learn when she moved toward it. And she knew, deep down, there was no other choice. What did the red flare mean? It burned in the sky only for a breath, a streak of blood across the stars, then gone, leaving only silence and doubt. Her eyes stayed fixed on the empty sky long after it faded. She wanted to believe it was her unit, some desperate signal, a breadcrumb left for her to follow. But she knew better. Hope was dangerous. She adjusted her pack, tightened her grip on the rifle, and rose from the shadow of the rocks. The night was colder now, sharp enough that her breath curled in faint streams of white. Each step she took crunched soft against the dry earth, echoing too loud in the emptiness. She moved low, careful, every nerve alive. The flare had dropped somewhere beyond the ridge line. Not far, but distance could be deceptive in the desert night. She paced her breath, steady, listening for anything unnatural. That was when she caught it. Faint, metallic, a low hum, then silence, not the wind, not the earth, machinery. Her body stilled, her rifle rose. She crouched low, eyes scanning the ridges. Shadows twisted with moonlight, turning every rock into a figure. Then movement. A flicker of reflection, glass, metal. She lowered her scope. Through the crosshairs she saw it, a broken-down truck half buried near the ridge, rusted but not dead, a faint glow inside the cab, dim and careful. Her stomach tightened. Not her unit. But not empty either. She slid lower, crawling across the sand, elbows dragging slow, deliberate. Her breath stayed shallow, heartbeat pounding in her ears. Every scrape of gravel felt like thunder. Closer. She reached a dip in the ground and froze, letting her ears search the silence. Voices, low, muffled, foreign. She caught fragments, too soft to understand but enough to feel their weight. Enemy. She pressed her cheek against the stock, scope steady, glass catching the faint glow of men crowded in the cab. 2, maybe 3, weapons slung across shoulders. Her throat tightened. The flare, had it been theirs, a trick, a signal to draw someone out. She didn't know. But she did know this. They weren't random, they were waiting. Her finger hovered on the trigger, breath caught between action and restraint. One shot, they'd know, more would come. She slid back inch by inch, breath shallow. Survival was silence. But as she retreated, her boot brushed stone. The crack was soft but enough. Voices sharpened, heads turned. Her chest froze. She crawled faster, pressing into the earth, heart hammering. Then a shout. Light flared, a beam slicing across the dark. She rolled, pressing herself flat. The beam swept, searching. Footsteps hit sand, heavy and fast. She clutched her rifle close, crawling backward into shadow. The beam cut closer, closer. Then silence again. She waited, body rigid, every nerve screaming. 1 minute, 2. The footsteps stopped, the beam faded. She dared to breathe. They hadn't seen her, not yet. She pressed deeper into shadow, forcing her pulse down. Her fingers brushed her pack, the folded letter, the photo, anchors, reminders. But another memory surfaced, uninvited. A briefing room, months ago, the air thick with the smell of coffee and paper. She had spoken calm, precise, outlining a weakness in the plan, a flaw no one wanted to acknowledge. The captain had looked at her, eyes hard, then past her as if she hadn't spoken at all. And then the words, simple, cutting. She's not ready. Not to her, about her. And no one had argued. She clenched her jaw now, pressing against the earth. The flare wasn't her unit, but the truth burned sharper. Maybe they had believed she wasn't ready. Maybe they had decided she was a liability. Her chest ached, not from fear, from betrayal. She rose slowly, crouched low, and moved away from the ridge. Each step was careful, deliberate, until the glow of the truck faded into distance. The desert opened again, wide, empty, indifferent. But she was not indifferent. She pressed forward, every step fueled by the fire building in her chest. If they thought she wasn't ready, if they thought she would fade, disappear, then she would prove them wrong. Not for them. For herself. The night stretched long. Stars wheeled overhead, their cold light tracing her path. She found another ridge, smaller, jagged, and slipped into its shadow. She crouched, pulling her knees close, rifle across her lap. The air was colder now, biting through fabric, gnawing at her skin. She let her eyes close, just a fraction, just enough. And the dream came. It wasn't really a dream, more a memory, half-buried, rising unbidden. Her sister's face, younger, full of laughter. A summer night, fireworks in the distance, the two of them lying on a rooftop. She remembered the way her sister's voice had whispered. "You don't have to prove anything, you know, not to anyone." But she had, always, proved she belonged, proved she was strong enough, proved she deserved the uniform, the rifle, the seat in the helicopter. And now, alone under the stars, she wondered, had she ever been proving it for them? Or was it always for herself? Her eyes opened. The desert was still, the silence complete. She whispered into the dark, voice raw, "I'm still here." Her words vanished into the night, carried away by the cold. But the truth lingered. She was still here. And she would not disappear quietly. Why had the ground changed? She noticed it just after dawn. Pale light broke over the desert, shadows shrinking, the air carrying that dry, biting chill before the sun set fire to the sand. She crouched low, fingertips brushing across the earth. Tracks. Boot prints. Not hers. Her breath stilled, they were fresh, hours old at most. She scanned the horizon, eyes narrowing. Nothing but the vast, shimmering expanse. No sound, no movement. But the ground told a different story. She rose slowly, rifle angled across her chest, scanning with every step. The prints cut north, toward the jagged line of hills. Her pulse quickened. Could it be them? Her unit? Survivors moving on foot, forced down after the last mission. Hope tried to push in, but she shoved it back. Tracks didn't belong to anyone yet. Not until she knew. She followed. Each step was deliberate, quiet. The prints were heavy, carrying weight, gear. Not just one person, a group. Her chest tightened. She pressed forward, eyes shifting constantly between ground and horizon. The sun climbed, heating the sand until it shimmered in the distance. Sweat slicked her back. The taste of metal coated her tongue. And then, something else. Not just prints, drag marks. She crouched again, brushing her fingers against the shallow groove in the dirt. A body, or a wounded man, pulled along. Her throat closed. Her mind raced. If it was her unit, someone had gone down, someone had bled. She looked closer. The dirt was stained, faint but unmistakable. Blood. She pressed her palm flat to the earth, feeling its rough heat. The silence of the desert pressed heavier now, every sound amplified. Her thoughts spiraled. Who was it? Which one? She saw faces, the ones who had walked past her, ignored her at the table, yet still shared cigarettes and muttered stories before sleep. She rose sharply, breath shallow, forcing herself forward. The prints led deeper into the hills. Shadows grew sharper, rocks rising jagged around her. Each step echoed, crunching stone, her body tense and ready. And then, she froze. Voices. Low, rough, foreign. Her stomach dropped. Not her unit. She pressed into the rocks, lowering herself, rifle steady. Through the scope she caught them. 4 men gathered near a boulder, rifles slung, laughing in sharp bursts. Their gear wasn't standard. Not her side. She scanned lower. and her chest locked. One man knelt on the ground, hands bound behind him. His face was swollen, blood streaking his temple. His uniform, her uniform. Her throat tightened. One of hers. Alive. The laughter cut deeper. One of the men shoved him forward, forcing him to his knees. He staggered but stayed upright. His head lifted, just enough for her to see his eyes. Her stomach clenched. She knew that face. It was Tor's. The quiet one. The medic. The man who had once shared half his rations when she skipped mess, pretending not to notice she hadn't eaten. He was still alive. Her pulse pounded in her ears. Every instinct screamed to act, to fire, to end it. But training cut sharp, 4 against 1. She was too far, too exposed. She ground her teeth, pressing deeper into shadow, scope locked on them. One of the men raised a hand. The others pulled Tor's to his feet, shoving him forward. He stumbled but didn't break. His jaw was tight, blood streaking his cheek, but his eyes were steady. She watched, breath trapped. They moved, Tor's dragged between them. She followed. Slow, careful, every step calculated. The sun burned higher, shadows shrinking. Her throat was dry, lips cracked, but her focus cut through everything. For hours she tracked them. Each time they crested a ridge, she melted into shadow, rifle steady. And each time she thought of Tor's, of the man who had once told her, voice low as they cleaned weapons. Sometimes, the only way we make it through this is by pretending we're already dead. She had laughed then, soft, pretending not to understand. Now she did. The men led Tor's deeper into the hills, toward a narrow pass. Rocks rose high, funneling them into shadow. She slipped closer, crouched low, pressing into the stone. Her breath caught. A camp. Tents, a fire pit, smoke faint against the sky. Weapons stacked against rock. More men. At least a dozen. Her stomach dropped. Tor's was shoved into the dirt near a pole. His hands remained bound. One man kicked him hard. He grunted, folded forward, but didn't cry out. She swallowed hard, chest burning. One woman, one rifle. Against 12. Her pulse hammered. Logic screamed at her to back away, to retreat, to survive. But her heart, the fire in her chest, burned hotter. She couldn't leave him, not like they had left her. Her finger brushed the trigger guard, slow, deliberate. She whispered into the silence, voice trembling but steady, "You're not forgotten." Then she slid deeper into shadow, eyes sharp, mind racing. Not yet, not now. But she would find a way. For Tor's, for herself. For survival that would echo louder than all orders. What chance did one soldier have against 12? She stared down at the camp from her perch in the rocks, rifle steady, breath shallow. Below, the enemy moved with the ease of men who thought themselves safe. Boots crunched against gravel. Voices echoed in sharp bursts of laughter. Metal clanged against stone as someone adjusted a weapon. And Tor's. He was bound to a post, wrists raw, face shadowed by dried blood. His head hung forward, his body slumped, but every so often he shifted. Alive. Still fighting, even if just by breathing. She gritted her teeth. Logic screamed, retreat, survive, wait. But another voice cut through, sharper, older. The same voice that had echoed in every briefing room, every ignored suggestion, every moment she was passed over. "You're not ready." Her jaw clenched. She wasn't ready, fine. Then she would make herself ready, alone. She slid back from the ridge, breath steady, heart pounding. She knew what had to be done. Not a frontal attack, not a rush of bullets. That was suicide. This would take patience. And patience she had in spades. She crept along the rocks, silent as shadows circling wide around the camp. The sun dipped lower, heat fatting into a dry, sharp chill. The enemy settled in, building a fire, laughter rising with the smoke. From her vantage point, she studied their patterns. The way one man paced near the weapon stack. The way another leaned against the post, bored, rifle slung carelessly. The way two more argued near the fire, voices sharp. She counted, tracked, memorized. Then she waited. The minutes dragged, stretching into hours. The fire burned higher, casting flickering light against the rocks. Shadows danced, stretched, collapsed. And then her chance. One man peeled away, wandering toward the edge of camp to relieve himself. His rifle swung loose against his side, steps careless. She slid lower, pressing herself into shadow. Her breath slowed. Her finger rested against the trigger, light, steady. One shot. The world narrowed, scope, crosshairs, target. She pulled. The crack split the silence. The man dropped. Her heart seized. Shouts erupted. The camp exploded into motion. Voices barked orders, rifles raised, boots scattering across the dirt. She slid back instantly, pressing into the rocks, rifle held tight, breath sharp. The camp roared with confusion. Men sprinted toward the fallen body, shouting in their language, scanning the ridges. But they didn't know where. She stayed low, crawling backward into shadow, pulse thundering. One down. But it wasn't enough. She risked a glance back. Torres hadn't moved. His head was still lowered, but she thought just for a flicker that she saw his shoulders rise, a breath, a spark. Her chest burned. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It wasn't about proving she was ready or capable or worthy. It was about him. The one man who had ever looked at her without judgment. The one who had shared silence instead of dismissal. She wouldn't leave him. Not like they had left her. The camp stayed alert now. Men circled the perimeter, eyes scanning the rocks. Their movements were sharp, deliberate. She waited, patient still. Hours crawled. The fire burned low, smoke curling into the sky. One by one their movements slowed. Exhaustion won. Voices softened. But they didn't all sleep. Two remained at watch, packing near Torres. Her teeth ground. She needed a distraction, something to pull them away just long enough. Her fingers brushed her pack, inside a flare. Her chest tight, dangerous, too loud, too visible, but maybe. She pulled it free, weighing it in her hand. The metal was cold, edges rough. She whispered, voice raw, please work. Sliding along the rocks, she angled herself far from the camp's direct line of sight. Her hand shook as she struck the flare, sparks spitting before it roared alive in crimson light. She hurled it across the sand. It hissed, bright against the dark, smoke curling high. Shouts erupted. Men scrambled, rifles raised, sprinting toward the glow. Orders cracked like whips, sharp and desperate. The two near Torres hesitated, then followed. She moved. Fast, silent, down the ridge across gravel into the camp's shadow. Her breath stayed sharp, her boots soft against dirt. Every sound felt like thunder in her ears, but the chaos masked her. She reached him. Torres lifted his head weakly, eyes glassy, unfocused. When he saw her, something flickered, disbelief, then recognition. His lips moved, no sound. "SHH," she whispered, crouching low. Her hands worked the knots, fingers raw, trembling with urgency. The rope cut deep into his wrists, stiff with dried blood. She bit down, pulling, tearing. Her nails broke, skin split, but the rope gave. He slumped forward, arms free. She caught him, pulling him close, whispering through clenched teeth, "We're not done, stay with me." His breath rattled, weak but alive. The flare sputtered out. Shouts rose, boots thundered closer. Her stomach dropped, time gone. She slung one of his arms over her shoulder, dragging him upright. His weight sagged heavy, but she braced, pulling him toward the shadows. Every step was agony. Every second the camp roared louder. They reached the ridge, just as voices exploded behind them. "Go," she hissed, teeth clenched, dragging Torres into the rocks. Rifle shots cracked, stones splintered, dust exploded around them. She dropped, shielding him, pressing into the earth. Her pulse thundered, ears ringing. Shouts grew closer. She turned her head, eyes meeting his. And in that moment something passed between them. Not words, not even a promise, just the raw, unspoken truth. They were both alive. And together they would not be forgotten. How far could a broken body run? The question dug into her chest with every step, every breath, every drag of Tor's weight across the rocky earth. His arms slumped heavy across her shoulders, his boots scraping dirt. His breathing rattled, shallow and uneven. Behind them the night cracked with voices. Shouts carried across the hills hard and sharp. Orders barked. Boots thundered. The hunt had begun. She clenched her jaw, pressing forward into the darkness. The rocks tore at her palms, the cold bit into her lungs, but she didn't stop. Couldn't stop. The ridge stretched before them like an endless wall of shadow, jagged and merciless. She picked her way through it, silent but frantic, dragging Tor step by step. Every sound felt amplified. The scrape of stone under her boots, the rasp of his breathing, the snap of a branch somewhere behind them. She froze. Shouts closer. Her pulse surged. She ducked low, pulling Tor's with her into a shallow depression in the rock. She pressed him down gently, then threw herself over him, shielding him with her body. Light cut across the dark. A beam swept the rocks, narrow and piercing, slicing across stone only yards away. Her breath stopped. The beam passed, voices murmured, fading. Only when silence stretched again did she move, hands trembling as she pulled Tor's upright once more. They stumbled forward. Minutes blurred into hours. Her muscles burned, her shoulders screamed, but she carried him, dragged him, supported him. And through it all, one thought pulsed like a drumbeat in her skull. Don't stop, don't stop, don't stop. Her body begged, her lungs seared, but her will was iron. She remembered the night they left her. The heat of the rotor wash, the rush of wind, the sting of sand against her skin as the helicopter lifted, its shadow shrinking into the sky. Her voice had broken against the radio, "I'm still here." And the silence that answered. Now she looked at Tor's, barely conscious, his head lolling against her shoulder and her throat tightened. She would not do to him what had been done to her. Never. They reached a cluster of rocks, jagged and sharp, rising like broken teeth against the stars. She guided him into the shadows, lowering him gently onto the ground. His body sagged, chest rising weakly. She crouched beside him, brushing hair from his bloodied face. "Stay with me," she whispered, voice breaking. "Just stay." His eyes fluttered open, unfocused, glassy. He tried to speak. His lips moved, words fractured. "Why you didn't leave?" Her chest burned. "Because I know what it feels like," she whispered. Silence, his eyes closed again. His breath rasped shallow. Her throat tightened, but she forced herself upright. She scanned the horizon, eyes sharp. The voices were closer now, carried on the wind. She moved quickly, gathering stones, scattering them down a narrow path away from their shelter. Then she picked up a shard of broken metal, pressing it against the stone until sparks leapt. The dry brush caught, small flames licking upward. A decoy. She crouched low, dragging Tor's deeper into the shadows. She pressed his body against the rock, shielding him with her own. Minutes later the voices surged, boots thundered. The flames crackled. Shouts erupted sharp, urgent. The enemy poured toward the fire, rifles raised, eyes fixed on the blaze. She held her breath, pressing closer to Tor's. The heat of the fire licked against her cheek, the smoke curled, but they didn't turn, they didn't see. And just like that, the hunt surged past them. Her muscles sagged with relief. But it was short. They would circle back, they always did. She looked at Tor's again, his face pale, blood crusted at his temple. Her chest ached. She pressed her forehead against his shoulder, whispering, "I don't know how far I can carry you, but I'll carry you anyway." She pulled him upright again. His weight dragged against her, heavy, suffocating, but she bore it, step by step. The night stretched long. At times her vision blurred, the rocks swayed, her knees buckled, but she pushed. The stars wheeled above them, silent and cold. The hills stretched endless. And somewhere in the dark, the voices always followed. By dawn, the horizon burned pale gold. The first light cut across the hills, harsh and unforgiving. She squinted, shielding her eyes, exhaustion dragging at every fiber of her body. Tor stirred weak, his lips cracked open. "Water!" Her throat closed, she had almost none left. She pulled her canteen free, pressing it to his lips. He drank, weak and trembling. She forced herself to take nothing. Her mouth burned with thirst, but she ignored it. She watched him swallow, then rest again, his breathing steadying if only slightly. Her chest swelled with something she hadn't felt in days. Hope. Faint, fragile, but real. The voices were distant now, still out there but farther. The fire had bought them time. She sat back against the rocks, Tor's weight heavy against her. Her body trembled, her lungs raw. For the first time in hours, she allowed herself to breathe. The silence stretched. And in that silence she thought of home. Of the house with peeling paint, the porch that creaked under her boots, the tree out front that she used to climb as a girl. She hadn't seen it in years, but the memory rose sharp, vivid. That house had been where she first learned to carry weight heavier than her own, where she first learned that silence could scream louder than words. And now here she was again, carrying, enduring. The weight of a man, the weight of a promise, the weight of not repeating history. Her eyes burned, but she didn't cry. She just sat there with the dawn breaking, his breathing in her ear, and the hunt still echoing faint behind them. And for one fleeting moment, she allowed herself to believe. They might make it. How much weight could a single human soul carry before it shattered? Her knees buckled again, slamming into stone. Pain jolted up her legs, sharp and merciless. The sound tore from her throat, half gasp, half growl. Tor's slumped against her shoulder, dead weight now, his head lolling, his breath faint. She dragged in air, lungs burning. Her arms trembled, her vision blurred at the edges. Still she moved. Step dragged step. The sun was high now, punishing, merciless. The heat baked the rocks until they shimmered. The horizon rippled. The world itself seemed to waver. Her mouth was sandpaper, her tongue heavy, the last drops of water long gone. And still the voices carried, faint but steady, riding the wind. The hunt hadn't stopped. Her body screamed at her, "Drop him, leave him, save yourself." But she couldn't. Her mind split into fragments, sharp and jagged. One side whispered survival, the other whispered memory. The night she'd been left, the radio silence, the hot wash of rotor blades, the emptiness when they were gone. She'd sworn then. Never again. Her foot caught on a stone. She stumbled, fell hard, dragging Tors down with her. Dust exploded around them. Pain tore through her shoulder. She lay there, chest heaving, eyes wide against the bright, merciless sky. She couldn't. Her hand shook as it brushed against Tor's chest. His heart beat faint, weak but steady. She let out a broken laugh. "You stubborn bastard." She rolled onto her side, curling against the stone. Her breath came in shallow gasps. The voices carried again, closer. Her pulse surged. If they found them now, like this, it would all end. Her body trembled. She could go no further, she knew it. And yet, something stirred, a flicker, the faintest ember. Not in her body, in her will. She forced herself upright, every muscle screaming. She braced her shoulder under Tor's again, hauling him up with a raw cry torn from somewhere deep. Her legs buckled, but she moved. Not for herself. For him. The terrain shifted ahead, the ground sloping downward into a dry ravine. Shadows pooled there, dark and cool. Sanctuary. She stumbled toward it, half dragging, half carrying, until the shade swallowed them both. They collapsed in the dust, limbs tangled, chests heaving. The coolness bit against her fever-hot skin, sharp relief. For minutes she lay still, listening to the drum of her heart. Then she heard it. Tor's voice, weak, broken, but there. "You should leave me." Her throat tightened. "Shut up," she rasped, turning her head toward him. His eyes fluttered half open, glassy. His lips cracked into the faintest smile. "You're carrying dead weight." Her chest ached. "You're alive," she whispered, fierce, almost angry. "And as long as you're alive, I'll carry you." Silence stretched. His smile faded. His eyes closed again. She pressed her forehead into the dirt, eyes burning. Her body wanted to quit. Every cell screamed surrender. But surrender meant forgetting him, abandoning him, becoming them. She wouldn't. Not even if it killed her. The wind shifted, carrying the sound of boots. Voices again, too close. Her heart lurched. They'd tracked them here. She dragged herself upright, eyes wild, scanning the ravine. No cover, no escape. Her rifle lay at her side, dust-caked, heavy. She grabbed it, hands trembling. She could fight, she could draw them away. She could buy him time. Her chest tightened. But if she left, would he even last? Her mind raced. Options flickered like sparks, all dangerous, all fragile. And then she heard something new. Not voices, not boots. A low hum. Distant, metallic. Her breath caught. Helicopter. She froze, heart hammering. She tilted her head, straining. The sound grew louder, closer. Not enemy, different, lower pitch, familiar. Her chest swelled. Rescue. But her stomach dropped just as fast. They'd been abandoned once before. What if this wasn't for them? What if it passed, blind, uncaring? Her hands shook against the rifle. She had to risk it. She forced herself upright, dragging Tors against the wall of the ravine. She propped him there, brushing his face with trembling hands. "Stay alive," she whispered, "please." Then she ran. Her legs screamed, her lungs burned, but she climbed, scrambling up the jagged rock, tearing skin, drawing blood. She burst onto the ridge, the wind whipping her face. The helicopter loomed in the distance, black against the sun. Her throat ripped as she screamed, voice raw, desperate, shattering the silence. "Here, here." Her arms flung wide, waving wild. For a heartbeat, nothing. Then the nose tilted. Turning toward her. Her chest broke open with something fierce, violent, overwhelming. Hope. And for the first time since the night she was left behind, she felt it surge whole through her body. But behind her, shouts. The hunters had reached the ravine. Her blood iced. She turned, eyes wide. The choice hit her like a blow. Run to the helicopter, save herself. Or dive back into the ravine, save him. Her whole body trembled. The helicopter drew closer. The voices rose louder. Her breath shattered. And in that suspended heartbeat, she moved. Which mattered more, the chance to be saved or the promise she had made? Her boots pounded stone as the helicopter thundered closer, its rotors shredding the silence. Dust kicked up, whipping her hair into her face. The valley roared with wind and sound and the rising storm of salvation. But behind her, the echoes of boots and voices cut sharper, closer, hungrier. The hunters had reached Tors. She stopped. Her body shook, every instinct screaming, "Go. Run. Live. Reach the bird and let the sky lift you away." But she turned. The ridge stretched behind her, hot and merciless. At its base, the ravine, Tors slumped against stone, surrounded. Her pulse tore at her ribs. No, not again. She sprinted back, lungs searing, legs buckling until she was plunging down the rocks, dust exploding beneath her. The first enemy appeared through the haze, rifle raised. She fired. The shot cracked, echoing like thunder in the ravine. The man dropped. Shouts erupted, the others charged. She hit the ground hard beside Tor's, body curling around his. Her rifle barked again, stone chips exploding around them as return fire lit the air. She pressed against him, her body a shield, her voice a whisper torn raw. "You're not dying here." The sky roared louder. The helicopter swept overhead, blades hammering the air. Gunfire rattled from above, sharp, controlled. Enemy bodies dropped into the dust, shouts fractured, chaos split the camp apart. She barely felt the relief. Her hand clung to Tor's, shaking, grounding herself in that fragile pulse still beating beneath his skin. Then shadows loomed, boots, but not enemy. Hands seized her arms, pulling her up. Voices shouted above the storm, "We've got you." She staggered, half carried, Tor's lifted between two soldiers. She blinked through the haze, barely able to speak. Don't leave him." "We won't," the answer cut firm, steady, human. Her chest cracked with something fierce, like a wound reopening. Not abandonment this time, rescue. They hauled her toward the helicopter, dust and smoke swirling, bullets still snapping in the distance. The bird's door gaped open, a mouth of salvation. She stumbled inside, collapsing against the metal floor. Tor's followed, laid flat beside her, medics already swarming. The door slammed, the ground fell away. For the first time in what felt like centuries, she was rising. The camp shrank beneath them, a sprawl of dust and bodies. The hills stretched endless, sun blazing merciless over all. She lay against the vibrating metal, lungs heaving, hands trembling. Her eyes burned, but no tears came. Tor stirred weakly, eyes flickering open. His lips cracked into a whisper, "You didn't leave." Her throat closed. She gripped his hand tight, voice breaking, fierce and quiet. "Never." The helicopter roared higher, slicing across the sky. Inside, the noise was deafening, but in her chest there was only silence. Not the silence of abandonment, not the silence of despair. The silence of something deeper, stronger. The silence of survival. Her gaze lifted, catching the faces of the soldiers around her. Eyes worn, faces lined with fatigue and fear, but human, present. One of them caught her stare, nodded once, no words, just recognition. And in that moment she felt it. The echo she had carried all along. She had been forgotten once, left behind, erased. But her survival, her choice not to abandon, not to break, was louder than any order. It echoed now, in the silence of soldiers who understood. It would echo tomorrow, in Tor's heartbeat if he lived. It would echo in herself, long after the dust settled. She leaned her head back against the vibrating wall, eyes closing, letting the roar of the rotors drown the last of her fear. Outside, the land rolled endless, indifferent, swallowing secrets whole. But not hers. Not anymore. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts. And when it does, its echo is enough to outlive silence.